What's going on, peeps? It's Wrath here, hanging out today, playing some Idle Heroes. I want to thank you guys so much for coming and hang out with me today. If you liked the video, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button and show your support, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright guys, we're here today on the official servers just to talk about some stuff, mainly. I plan to do some private server like my casino event today, but I decided not to, because I had an idea, and sometimes ideas are good, and this one felt like a good idea. So today we're going to hammer out the differences, I guess you would say, between PvE and PvP teams and what you should build. Generally speaking, let's preface this with a little bit of backstory on Wrath. I have played a lot of mobile games in my life. It's just a thing. I'm a gamer. I like it. It's fun. However, when it comes to mobile gaming, there's generally three types of three types of spenders. There's your big triangle platform on the bottom of your free-to-play players, your really light spenders. They make up the majority of your game. Probably, I would say 80% of players are either free-to-play or light spending. It's the biggest block of players in mobile gaming. Then you move up a rung, you've got kind of your middle spenders, your mid-tier spending people who spend more than light spenders, but they're definitely not on whale status yet. And at the very tippy top, that teeny little triangle at the top of the ladder, that's going to be your whales, the people that spend super heavy amounts of money on the game to be the best, and that's what they like. You could also fit, I guess, hackers and exploiters in there too, because they're going to have very similar teams. Why is that important? That's what you'd be asking. What does that even have to do with this? Well, you're going to find out. So before we jump into anything else, we're going to talk about the big difference between PvE and PvP. Very simple. Some people, if you're new, you might not know what that means. That's what this is for. PvP is just an abbreviation. It stands for player versus player. So when it comes to mobile gaming, PvP is the arena. The Crystal Crown League is a form of PvP. The Trial of the Champion is a form of PvP. Free Team of Arena is another form of PvP. You're fighting other players' teams. That's the entire point. You could also lump Brave Trial kind of in that same area, because Brave Trial is the only mode in Idle Heroes that's PvP, VE, or whatever, PvE, VP, however you want to say it, that mixes both PvE elements and PvP elements into one deal. PvE is abbreviated. Some people argue about what the abbreviation means. It doesn't really matter. It's player versus engine, environment, whatever. Generally, it means the challenge you're facing is set for you by the devs. Everything that's not PvP or PvEVP is PvE content. Now, that's a lot of P's in one quick motion, but it's a thing. All right. So in this case, PvE is everything not the arena, pretty much in Brave Trial. Your campaign is PvE. The Tower of Oblivion is PvE. The Aspen Dungeon is PvE. Your guild boss fights, your marauder fights, all of that stuff is going to fit under PvE. It's a huge portion of the game. PvE is pretty much everything. PvP occupies a pretty small portion of the game, but it's the most competitive portion of the game. Why is that important? Well, it's going to dictate kind of where you play. So, I guess we'll do something here in the background just to kind of have something going on. Let's spin some gems. How about that? We'll buy a couple of these deals, and we'll do some battles here. Just regular, watch them happen, old-fashioned battles. We'll drop them in 1 speed too, so I have more talky time. This is going to be kind of a background gameplay. I'll do mainly talking is the kind of the point here. But why is it important to know what kind of spender you are compared to what kind of team you're going to build? Well, I'll tell you. I will tell you. It's because how much money you spend on the game is going to dictate what kind of team you should build. Pretty much that's the long and short of it. The too long didn't watch version. If you're a whale who spends lots of money, PvP is your stomping ground. It's where you're going to probably end up because that's where you get to compete with the other people spending money and see who's the best. And that's kind of the point of whaling, is you want to see who's the best, who's spent the most, who's got the biggest internet wee-wee, and who can beat everyone else. I've done it. I've been there. I have whaled before, my peeps. Now, I haven't gone crazy with whales like 10 grand plus, but I've definitely spent way more money on mobile games than I should have before, so I kind of know what I'm talking about when I talk about free-to-play, the middle ground, and the heavy end of things, because I've been on all ends. And the one thing to pick up is there are very different groups of people when you meet them. If you're a whale and you hang out with the whales, you're going to have a very different atmosphere in your game than people that don't. It's a very competitive atmosphere. It's all about getting the edge, being the best, min-maxing your team. Whereas in free-to-play, it's more about just progression in general. It's a very different group of people. It's like an Olympic athlete compared to a middle school basketball player. One is incredibly focused on doing the best they can. The other one generally is just having a good time. So that's kind of where you fit in here. It's more casual if you're a free-to-play player, and that's important. Okay, it's very important. As a PvP player, if you're trying to do it as a free-to-play player, you're going to have a very hard time because the light spenders are going to hit harder than you in PvP if they decide to go PvP. The middle spenders are going to beat you in PvP because they're going to have more RNG, better heroes, they're going to beat you. And then when you go into the whales, they're going to dominate everybody else in PvP because that's what they generally gravitate towards. You don't see a lot of whales who focus PvE because it's not quite as competitive, and the whole point of whaling is to compete. So you don't see a lot of them there. This is why if you are a free-to-play / light spending player, I'm going to tell you right now, the best thing you can do is a PvE team. It's going to give you the most progression, the fastest. PvP will definitely not. That's delicious damage. We'll just go ahead and run that again, like a bam, so you can watch it happen twice. But yeah, being PvE as a free-to-play player gives you the most options to get guild coins, the better aspen loot. You get to go higher in the aspen with a PvE team. You're going to progress quicker. That's just the way it is. If you try to go PvP as a free-to-play player, you will progress slower. It's not to say that you can't do it, but you're going to have much slower progress, and you're also never going to be the top. Go ahead and set that in your mind. It's very important. As a free-to-play player, if you want to go PvP, you have to go ahead and just realize in a mobile game with microtransactions, you will never be the top. It's not going to happen unless you get there like I did a couple times, like right when refresh happened, you're like, oh, I'm number 1. It lasts for like 10 minutes. That's how it's going to be. It's not where you're going to do best. So that's important. Keep that in mind. As a middle ground player, if you're you're not a heavy spender, but you're not a super light spender either, you sit kind of in the middle, you have a little more versatility with what you want to do. You can go PvE and you'll do very well in it. You're going to be better at PvE than obviously the free-to-play or light spenders. But if you go PvP, while you will crap on the light spender generally and the free-to-play, the whales are still going to beat you. That's just how it's going to happen. You might win a couple through RNG and a little bit of luck, but whales are generally going to kind of stomp all over you in PvP. It's how it happens. As a whale, obviously, you're the tippy top of the deal. You probably don't even need to watch this because you already know where you fit because you're already in PvP. That's where you go. You go there because you know in PvP, you're going to poop on everybody beneath you. That's how it works. You are going to be that guy. If you decided to go PvE, you will be the best at PvE until you get bored of it. And that's usually what happens. You'll get big, heavy whales who go PvE to start with, and they kind of complete it. To an extent, they do almost everything they can, they start getting bored with it, and they want to get that competitive edge in, they jump into PvP, and then it just rabbit holes from there, and then they continue. Normally, that's how it goes. Been there, done that, it's a thing. So, what does that mean? Does it mean you can't do PvP as a free-to-play player? No, but you need to have realistic expectations before you decide to do it. Does it mean you can't go PvE if you're a whale? No, but it also means you need to have realistic expectations if you're going to do that. You're probably going to get bored with it, and you're going to jump into PvP later. It's just how it goes. There we go. Why this is important is because I see it all the time. Every day, no matter where I'm reading, whether it be Discord, Reddit, just world chat in general, my comment section, you see a lot of people, ask questions that they need to preface with more information, and you'll see advice given that is either good advice for the person giving it, but terrible advice for the recipient, or vice versa. That happens. Trust me, it happens all the time. The thing to remember is a whale player, someone who is focused heavily on in-game PvP, is going to have a very different idea of what a team build should look like than a free-to-play player. Luckily, I sit right there in the middle. See, I've done both, so I kind of know how to give advice depending on what you're trying to do, and that's what I try to do. I try to get the most accurate advice to the player that I can, and that's important. Sometimes I see people try to give advice in a good, spirited way, but it's really bad advice for the person they're giving it to. For example, I've seen many people say, should I build Vesa? And I have seen both answers. No, you should not build Vesa. She's not an in-game hero, and I see many people say, yes, she's a great all-around hero. Which answer's right? Well, that all depends on the person asking the question. And that's what's important. If you are going to ask that question, here's how you should preface that question. As a blank, should I build Vesa? As a free-to-play player, should I build Vesa? The answer is absolutely. She is going to help you a freaking ton all through your PvE content. She's great to have as a free-to-play player. Should I build Vesa as a primarily PvP spending player? Probably not. She's going to die out pretty quick in those areas, and you're not going to have late game use with her. So the answer, whether you said yes build or no build, can be right both ways depending on who you're telling it to. And that's why it's important to always preface your questions with that kind of information. As a free-to-play player, as a casual player, or as a whale. If you're a whale, you probably already know what you're building. But like I said, it's important to know those answers before you start asking the questions that you're trying to ask, because it makes a big difference on the outcome of the answer, whether that advice is going to help you or not. And I see it all the time, especially when I see questions like people say, like, should I build, say, Berea or King Barton? It's a very open-ended question, and depending on the player, there is a right and a wrong answer. If you are a PvE player, King Barton is going to give you no good, so you should go for Berea. He will do much better for you in PvE. That's just the way it works. If you're a more PvP-oriented mid-spender or a heavy spender, you could do both. Berea does work well at E3 and PvP, not maybe as good as he could, but he does have some serious one-shot potential. But mostly they'd probably say, probably better off with KB if you're going to do one, or maybe Scary, something like that, whatevs. Pick a hero. But like I said, because of the difference where the player is, the kind of player they are, it's going to make a big difference on whether that advice is good or not. And I see a lot of it. Like I said, people come to my channel and said, hey, well, this guy on this channel said that this isn't worth building. Well, what kind of player is the guy on that channel? Does he spend tons of money? Is he at the very end game? Well, yes, his advice is going to reflect that. He's going to, unless, I'm not saying he can't be objective and know what free-to-play is, but generally speaking, their advice is going to reflect where they are in the game, because to them it makes more sense. In my case, it depends on what you're doing. If you are a PvE player because you're free-to-play or light spending, the advice I give you is going to reflect that. I want to help you do better and not say, well, that hero sucks, it's not good in in-game PvP. If you're a free-to-play player, you don't give a flying crap about in-game PvP because you're never going to be there. That's the truth of it. You're not going to make in-game PvP as a free-to-play player. It's not going to happen. By the time you reach in-game, there's a new in-game. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you started when I did and I went straight PvP, what I would have ended at was, say, I just got to my 10-star team, starting to do good in PvP. Well, guess what? Then E3 launched. Where are you now? All the spenders have gotten to E3. You can't. So you, again, are getting pooped on by everybody that you spent so long trying to catch up to. It's never going to work. You will never be at the true end game of PvP. So if you focus your team build around that, you're going to be disappointed, and it might make you even quit the game because you just don't feel the progress happening. And that's why I like to say, peeps, it's very important to preface questions that you have about the game with the type of player that you are, because it's going to give you the best answer. Generally speaking, you will get better advice when you preface your questions with proper information. It's just a heads up. So, there we go. That's mainly what I wanted to cover today, was just talk about PvP and PvE, the difference, which team you should build, because it does make a difference. I've seen a lot of people that start out as free-to-play players thinking, well, I can go PvP. Sure, you can, but just know, you're not going to make the same progress a PvE player will, and you're never going to compete with the whales. And even if you wanted to extrapolate this over to the private server, it still holds true there. And you say, well, whoa, there's no spending on the private server. Doesn't matter. If you decide, like, say I just found the private server today, I jumped over there and said, you know what, there's no spending, I'm going to go PvP. Guess what? You're 2 years behind the people that have already done that, which means they're already rocking a 6-man E3 team, and you've got a 5-star Norma. You're never going to catch that player. It's just not going to happen. By the time that you do catch them, E6 will be out, and there will be a whole new gameplay. You're not going to catch that person, so PvP, even on the private server, is still wildly unbalanced due to the amount of time you have to play to catch that person. Whereas on official servers, or the legit game you download from Google Play or the App Store, your separator isn't going to be like it is on console or PC, where it's skill-based separation. It's going to be money-based separation. The heavy spenders will always be ahead of you, no matter what, unless you spend enough to catch up. That's how it works. So, here's my advice. The short and simple version of my advice. If you're a free-to-play or light-spending player, you need to focus PvE for the best rewards, the best progression. If you really love PvP, but you can't stand not being at least in the top of PvP, don't play mobile games. That's my 100% advice to you. If you're all about PvP and you want to compete, you need to jump over to console gaming or PC gaming, where the skill gap is what decides victors and losers, not money. That is exactly what you need to do. However, if you just love PvP and you don't really care about being the top dog, you can still play this as free to play and go PvP. It's just not going to be as great. It's not going to be as good of an experience for you. That's my advice, peeps. So that's something to keep in mind too. When you ask a question in the world chat or in Reddit and Discord, wherever you're asking this question, if someone's giving you advice, always take it with a grain of salt, because that person has their own bias. If they're a whale, it's going to reflect that in their answers. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people say, don't build Vesa, she sucks in the end game. I see it all the time. It's horrible advice for free-to-play players, but it's good advice if you're a whale. It makes perfect sense. You don't want Vesa in the end game. She's not worth it. So it's the correct answer for him. It's just not the correct answer for you. Keep that in mind. Anytime you ask a question, make sure you know where the person who's answering you is coming from. If they're a free-to-play player, it's likely their advice is going to help you as a free-to-play player. If they're a whale, their advice is going to be more geared toward whaling players than, you little guys, you free-to-play players. So keep that in mind, just something to go with. I wanted to make this video because I get this question all the time. What kind of hero should I build? This hero, this hero. Once you know what kind of player you are, whether you're a light spender, a medium spender, or a heavy spender, you can very much easily decide what portion of the game you need to go into for the best results. And from there, it's a much easier process to building your team. Because if you say in chat, hey, I'm a PvE guy, I don't care about PvP, should I build this hero or this hero? You're going to get a very good, probably accurate response on what hero you should build. Because they're going to know, well, this hero, it sucks in PvP, but it's actually really good in PvE. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get that, like Sigmund. No whale's going to say, hey, build Sigmund for PvP. It's a horrible build for PvP. But if you say, I'm a PvE player, should I build Valentino or Sigmund? They'll say, Sigmund, 100% Sigmund. Screw Valentino, you want Sigmund. Because it's the best answer. So, that's what I want you guys to do. If you're in that position where you're not really sure what team you need to build, first, identify what kind of player you are. From there, you can decide what kind of team you want to build. And from then, you can start asking those questions about which heroes you should build individually for that team's purpose. It makes sense, all right? That's the video. I know it wasn't like super crazy in gameplay or really long, but I just wanted it to have good information because I get these questions all the time, and I want you guys to know who you should be listening to, okay? Because it does change. As a free-to-play player, I mean, you can listen to whales occasionally because they will still give you good advice. You know, I've played whale before, I can still give you advice on free-to-play because I've done both. But if someone only strictly whales, they're probably not going to have a really good amount of information for you as a free-to-play player because their wheelhouse is not your wheelhouse. Very different places. But, like I said, that's what I wanted to get out of the way. There you go. That's the consensus. Boom. Done. Light spender free to play. You want to go PvE, it's going to work for you. Mid-tier players that kind of spin decently heavy, but not crazy nuts. You can do either. You get free reign on what you want to do. If you're a whale, obviously you also have free reign, but mostly you're going to go PvP, and you already know that because you want to beat everybody, and you do it. You absolutely do it. So there we go. That's it for today, guys. I know it's not a super long gameplay video, not a normal video, but I wanted to get some information out on this because I'm honestly kind of tired of answering the question. I get it all the time. But there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please make sure, smash that thumbs up button to show your support. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well and tell your friends about it because that definitely helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next one.